Only when the last tree is cut down, the last fish caught, and the last stream is poisoned will man realize we can't eat money. Native American proverb.
Kunti, क्या कर रही हो? What are you doing? You seem to be very busy today.
Dadaji, I am stitching a special mattress for Chotu to sleep on, out of the old curtains which Ma was going to throw away. If I make a comfortable bed for Chotu, he will sleep soundly at night, and he won't keep barking in my ears at the slightest sound outside. His bark makes me jump out of my sleep. Isn't that so, Chotu?
Wah, wah! So you are recycling? Do you know that by doing so, you are actually working towards saving the natural resources of our planet? If we were to buy a new bedding, not only would we have to pay for it, but even the planet would be paying for it, as its natural resources would become that much less. I can see your eyes turning as wide as those parathas your ma has made today.
What are natural resources, Dadaji?
Natural resources are what are found naturally on our planet and help provide for our basic needs, support us in various ways, enhance our lives, and are also used by mankind for developmental projects like construction work. In short, natural resources are used to make food, fuel, and raw materials to produce various goods.
You mean like air, water, plants, and even animals? Are those natural resources?
Bilkul sahi. And there are many more. Let me see. Can you think of all the natural resources that were involved in making Chotu's bed?
First of all, the cotton plants growing in the fields, the soil in which the plants were growing, water and air needed by the plants, even sunlight which the cotton plants needed. That is also important. Arey haan, the electricity in the textile factory to spin the cotton into thread and to weave the thread into cloth. So many resources just for your bed, Chotu. I haven't missed out any of the resources, have I?
And where did the electricity used in the factory come from? Maybe a hydroelectric power plant where the water from a dam was released in a controlled manner to drive a dynamo.
Dadaji goes on to explain that when the dynamo rotates between the poles of a magnet, it produces electricity. The metal parts in the dynamo, as well as in the textile factory, are also from the Earth's natural resources. Our Earth has lots of minerals containing metals like iron, silver, gold, copper, and aluminium. People mine these minerals and then extract the metals by different chemical processes.
We need that dynamo to rotate between the poles of a magnet to produce electricity. Arey Chotu, what are you doing? Wagging your tail round and round so rapidly. Actually, I am feeling khoob chan. Nice and cool. Because your tail is fanning me. Maybe you should make that dynamo rotate with your tail to produce electricity. Then you too would be added to the list of Earth's natural resources.
But on a serious note, there are different ways to make a dynamo rotate. In the thermal power plants, people heat water to produce steam. The force of the steam rotates the dynamo to produce electricity. In some places, geothermal energy comes out from deep inside the earth, from the earth's magma, and this fountains out of the land in the form of hot springs. The naturally formed steam from the hot springs too could be used to rotate the dynamo and produce electricity.
Dadaji, I just thought of one more natural resource that was used to make Chotu's bedding. The cloth that was manufactured in the textile factory had to be transported all the way to the shop from where Ma and Pitaji bought it to make curtains for the house. The truck that transported it had to use petrol, right? Isn't that also a natural resource?
Bilkul sahi. I am proud of my Kunti. You are so smart.
But where does petrol come from? Does it also come from deep inside the earth?
Good question. Petroleum, diesel, natural gas are all fossil fuels that are formed from parts of dead animals and plants millions of years ago. When the dead animals and plants got buried in the earth, the heat, pressure, and absence of oxygen resulted in their turning into fossil fuels like petroleum, coal, peat, lignite, and natural gas over the years.
So, we can get all these fossil fuels by digging deep down inside the earth?
Not only by digging through the earth's crust, but also by drilling into the sea beds. The ancient marine plants and animals over many years got mixed with mud, silt, and sand on the sea floor and gradually got buried underneath. Here too, the heat and pressure converted them into fuels.
Chotu has suddenly remembered something. Why has he suddenly run outside the house? Look, he is digging vigorously. Is he looking for his buried bone? Is he afraid that it might turn into a fossil fuel?
Really, Kunti, you have a very good sense of humor.
Dadaji, you are great fun too. I love to play guessing games with you. Is there any other guessing game you would like to play on natural resources?
Oh yes. Can you point out as quickly as possible 5 objects in this room that have been obtained from natural resources, and which natural resource has each been tapped from?
The table is made from wood, which came from trees. This steel jug is made from minerals that were obtained from the earth's crust. This kulhad you are drinking your tea from is made of mud, which is part of the land resource. The drinking water in the matka comes from the river, which is a natural resource. The air we are breathing, that is a natural resource too. And one more, the milk that Ma is boiling comes from the cows. Aren't animals a natural resource too, besides milk? Many people eat eggs, mutton, chicken, fish.
Shabash! In just 1 minute, you have guessed not 5, but 6 natural resources.
Dadaji, you were talking about fossil fuels. There are so many trucks, buses, and cars on the roads, especially in the cities. When we had gone to visit Jaya Mami in Mumbai, there were cars almost touching each other in long lines, waiting at the signal lights. Imagine how much of fossil fuels they must be using up. In addition to all that, they must be using fossil fuels in the big industries too. Won't it all get over after some time?
Bilkul sahi, Kunti. Fossil fuels are bound to get exhausted in some years. We can't possibly wait for millions of years for them to be formed again. Resources such as fossil fuels, which are bound to get over when used in huge amounts, are called non-renewable.
That means minerals in the earth's crust are also non-renewable. And natural resources like air, sunlight and water are renewable, isn't it? They can get replenished very quickly, right?
Yes, we are lucky to have on our planet such infinite quantities of renewable natural resources like air, sunlight and water, even forests, as they sustain us to a great degree.
Dadaji, our Masterji had told us something that Gandhiji had once pointed out, that the earth has enough for our needs, but not for our greed. So if we don't overuse the natural resources, everyone will have enough, even for the future generations.
Wah, wah! What words of wisdom coming from such a young mouth!
Dadaji, you just mentioned that people should use alternative sources of fuels. What are those alternative sources of fuels? Are we using one of these preferred fuels?
You hit the nail on the head. What we use in our house is a renewable resource of energy, biogas. It is a mixture of several gases that can burn to produce heat. But the main component is methane.
So all that mixture of cow gobar, plant waste and crop waste from Mahesh Mama's fields, which go into that newly constructed building, is actually being turned into a renewable source of energy. Amazing! We are actually converting all that wasted matter into useful energy. And this biogas will always be available for us, not like the other fossil fuels.
Exactly. And that building is the biogas plant or digester. All that matter that is fed in gets fermented and turns into biogas. Let me tell you something, Kunti. The population of the entire world has always been increasing. And with all those people having the need of food and energy, the world will soon lose all of its non-renewable resources. Now is the time to think of changing our ways and using different, cleaner, non-polluting sources of energy.
Besides biogas, which are the other sources of energy we should think of using?
Let me see if you can guess. There are two very readily available sources of energy that we feel almost every day, and we do not have to drill into the earth for them. They are around us.
That is easy. Wind and sun?
Guessed correct. The sun, our Suraj Dada, never fails us except when it is too cloudy during the monsoons. In many places, they have solar power panels to trap this freely available sunlight into special solar cells called photovoltaic cells, which can give us electricity.
Just 18 days of sunshine on earth, says Dadaji, contains as much energy as is stored in all the planet's reserves of coal, oil and natural gas.
So, Dadaji, shouldn't we too have solar panels on our rooftops to produce electricity?
We will, by and by.
And what about wind? How does it help us?
In open lands like farms or grasslands, people have now set up wind turbines which look just like huge fans.
I know. When the wind blows, the blades of the fans rotate, and that helps to drive the turbine or dynamo and generate electricity.
Full marks. Wind energy is another very clean form of energy and readily available.
It would not leave any ash like when we burn coal or wood, right? Oh, Chotu. So you also agree? You too know all about non-renewable, clean forms of energy? Oh, but I feel there can be one drawback. What about the birds that are flying about?
I am afraid you are right. The rotating blades could injure birds while in flight. The turbines have to be spaced out far apart so that they do not crowd and come in their way during flight. But again, this requires huge tracts of open land. As the saying goes, there are two sides to every coin. जिंदगी सिक्के के दो पहलू की तरह है.
How do fuels cause pollution, Dadaji?
Fossil fuels like coal, petroleum and oil produce huge amounts of carbon dioxide, which is the chief greenhouse gas. The other greenhouse gases are methane, ozone, nitrous oxide and water vapor. These gases form a blanket over our planet, preventing the sun's rays from reflecting and escaping from the Earth's surface.
Is this why our planet is becoming warmer by the day and causing our climate to change?
The change in climate has impacted our planet in several ways.
Oh, I know. They were talking in school about glaciers at the Earth's poles and ice caps on mountains melting very quickly because of the warming. And the melted water has led to the ocean levels to rise. So many islands have already been drowned.
Very true, very true.
Coming back to fossil fuels, Dadaji, are they found anywhere in the world?
My dear Kunti, I have to rack my brains to answer all your questions. Deposits of fossil fuels depend on the climate and the organisms that lived in a particular country millions of years ago. And so, they are not equally distributed throughout the world. The largest reserves of oil and natural gas are found in the United States, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. The other countries import the fuels from these countries to meet with their needs.
How is the fuel transported to the other countries?
Such large amounts of fuel are transported by ship. Very often, there are accidents and the oil in the tanker spills in the ocean.
Oh no! What about the marine life? Isn't it sad?
Bilkul sahi. But now, let us look at the brighter side of things. Let me tell you about some success stories of our natural resources being saved.
Dadaji, you are so patient and kind. You have already told me so much about natural resources, and now you're going to tell me stories. Chotu, come and sit here. We can both listen to Dadaji's stories.
My first story is about how the national bird of the United States of America, the bald eagle, was saved. About 70 years ago, farmers all over the world were using a harsh chemical pesticide called DDT to protect their crops from insect pests. This pesticide leached into the soil, and when it rained, the water carried it into the rivers.
That means that the fish in the rivers got poisoned with the DDT?
Bilkul sahi. Not only did the fish get poisoned, but the bald eagles who ate the fish also got this poison entering their bodies.
Did they die because of the DDT?
They did not die immediately, but they began laying eggs that had very thin eggshells. So, when the mother bird would sit on the eggs to incubate them,
Aiyo, the eggs would get crushed and no new chicks would be born.
but things changed. Rachel Carson wrote about this in her book called Silent Spring. People who read it realized how harmful DDT was. Word spread like wildfire, and soon the government put a ban on DDT. The chemical was banned all over the world.
This is how the bald eagle was saved from becoming extinct?
Not only were they saved from becoming extinct, but the Americans got to see many bald eagles flying in the sky once again.
Did you hear that, Chotu? Another story, Dadaji?
Yes, closer home, the story about the Amur falcons. These birds migrate every year all the way from Siberia and northern China to Africa to tide over the cold winter.
Such a long distance. Don't they get tired?
On their way, they stop over to rest at Nagaland around the Doyang Reservoir, where they get to eat a lot of dragonflies. The people of Nagaland took advantage of this. They hunted these birds in the thousands to sell them for their meat.
Aiyo, then what happened?
Environmentalists became very concerned. An NGO called Bombay Natural History Society and other conservation agencies campaigned hard to save these birds. They went around the village convincing the people that the birds should be welcomed as visitors, that they are important to the ecosystem. People throughout the world got to know about the plight of the Amur falcons.
Were they successful in stopping the hunting?
Yes, it worked like magic. And the same locals who were once hunters turned into guides for the many tourists who now came just to see the birds arrive.
Shabash! Long live the Amur falcons! There should be more such efforts to save our animal and plant resources, as well as the other resources. I too am going to make posters to convince the people.
So, Kunti makes many posters and puts them up all over town. Here are some of them. Please do not cut down trees. They are our most valuable resource. Instead, plant many more trees. Please do not buy more than you need. Live simply to conserve our resources. Please remember to switch off all electrical devices like lights, fan, etc. in a room when not needed. That will help conserve our resources. Please compost your kitchen waste instead of dumping it along with other garbage. You can use the compost as fertilizer in your plants. Please ensure you use resources judiciously. Please ensure you use resources judiciously. Let us not overconsume. They are meant for me and you. Live sustainably is what we all should do. Please ensure you use resources judiciously. Please ensure you use resources judiciously. Let us not overconsume. They are meant for me and you. Live sustainably is what we all should do.